Ladies and gentlemen, this is El Cochino, Tom Lawler, and I'd like to welcome you to the podcast that puts the lotion on its own skin, LuchaWorld. Bitchin'.
Welcome everyone to another episode of LuchaWorld Podcast, episode number 136. Fredo Esparza here, and this week we are going to talk about the CMLL Grand Prix, the top two matches from that show. We will also be giving a rundown of the CMLL 89th anniversary show, some of the changes that came about because of an injury. We'll also be talking about the CMLL Night of Champions show that's coming up in late September, and we will also be looking at the latest news on Triplemania 30th, Chapter 3 in Mexico City, where we already knew about one match that was happening, but we have more information on a couple of other matches and some changes that have already happened to those matches, and that have led to really they haven't really led to much. I mean, other than one match having some a change, there's still a little bit of question mark as to what will be one of the other matches, because there really is the top two matches, which would be the mask match and the AAA World Mega Heavyweight title match. Those two seem to be the two big matches on that show. We still don't know what's going to happen with the World Mega Heavyweight title match, but we will talk about that in a bit. But before we get to that, we will first talk about some of the recent CMLL shows. I think last podcast I mentioned how I was going to talk about all these matches that have happened in CMLL recently, and there's been a lot of good stuff that's been going on over there. It's been a far better last few months for CMLL. I think it probably goes back to that tag match that was held between the Chavez brothers and versus Guerrero Maya Jr. and Star Jr. Kind of seems like from that point forward, they started having at least a couple of matches every couple of weeks that were anywhere between good to great. And even some of the shows were pretty good, but it really became very noticeable with the Grand Prix show from August 23rd, where the top two matches, of course, were the Grand Prix match itself, which was Team Mexico versus Team World, and the other match, which was Hechicero defending the CMLL World Heavyweight title against Euforia. Those two matches I thought were excellent. I don't know if they were like, I don't know what the star rating would be for these matches, because honestly, I don't really do that. I usually just base it on whether it was good, great, excellent, whatever term you want to use. But I thought they were both very good, excellent matches. I actually kind of preferred the Hechicero Euforia title match more than the Grand Prix match, but I think that's more of a preference type of thing. Also, the fact that the novelty of Hechicero defending the title on a CMLL show is something that hasn't been happening on a regular basis on CMLL shows. But I thought those guys were both outstanding in that match. A really good heavyweight match. We haven't had, usually it's Ultimo Guerrero versus somebody, another big guy that it has been the big heavyweight title match, and now we're kind of seeing with Terrible and Hechicero as the two main the two heavyweight champions. We're kind of getting a little bit of a greater variety of guys that they could face off against. Terrible recently defended his title against Panterita del Ring on an Arena Coliseo show, which I'm sure if you've seen Panterita del Ring work when he was pretty much with the Hijos de Averno as a Festo, I think it kind of had run its course, and him being a Rudo, he looked a little slower. When he started wearing the Panterita del Ring outfit and and they switched him over to technical, it kind of seemed like it brought a little bit of new life to him. So I think that actually helped. Unfortunately, we probably will never see that match on anything. I wish they would actually at least post. Maybe we'll see highlights of that match, but especially on CMLL Informa. But it would have been cool if they actually recorded these matches and actually made them available at some point. But Hechicero versus Euforia, I thought was excellent. There was actually this one crazy dive that Hechicero did where he jumped over the top rope, and it looked like he was basically going from maybe a foot higher than he should have. And the good thing for him was that Euforia is one of the taller luchadors, so he was able to at least catch him. If this was somebody who was maybe let's say under 5'10", Hechicero would have really been in some serious trouble, because we could have seen the last of Hechicero, really, because that would have been a really bad dive. Although I think Hechicero, when he did the dive, he had his arms out, so he kind of was already a little bit more prepared to take the impact of the fall. But I thought these guys were both excellent. The one critique that I would have for this match was the finish of the match, where CMLL, they constantly used the above the ring camera, and that angle did not do Hechicero's submission hold any justice. And I also think the way he did when he went for the submission hold, I don't think people were really expecting that to be the finish. So a lot of the crowd kind of like wasn't as enthusiastic as far as that being the finish, because the crowd was great for this match. I mean, they were really reacting to every single big spot until the very finish. It kind of just died that moment. I think it also didn't help that what they could see on the big screen, the camera angle wasn't very good. They probably should have done something a little better. But when they showed the replay, you could see that it was it's a cool submission hold, but I think maybe it takes Hechicero a little too long of a time to get it, especially against the guy who's as big as Euforia. So that was my only criticism of the match. The rest of it I thought was excellent. These two guys were really out there trying to prove a point that they were really good, which everybody already should know that they're great wrestlers. Hechicero doesn't get to show it as much. Euforia has this year at least had a little bit more of an opportunity to showcase himself in singles and tag matches with his son, Serrano Jr. But this was a good showcase for both of them. And, I was kind of hopeful that maybe Hechicero would defend the title at the Night of Champions show, but that did not happen. But at least we'll maybe get the Infernales in one match, although their opponents aren't that great. But at least we'll get something like that for that show. Wish it was somebody a little better. But, I thought it was like I said, this match, Hechicero versus Euforia, definitely something people should go out of their way to check out. I thought it was an excellent match. The Grand Prix was actually won by Volador Jr., who beat Tiger Mask 4. I thought this was actually, I would say it was a notch below the CMLL World Heavyweight title match. I think it took up about 1 hour, 21 minutes of the show, which I mean, it was well deserved. I mean, don't get me wrong, because they did the whole introduction, the playing the national anthem, all of that works perfectly for this match and this environment. You had the crowd really fired up, rooting for the Mexican team, and for the most part, the crowd was very much into it. I think that was the big thing, that if this match was raised up a level, it was because of the crowd reaction being so strong for much of the show, and especially rooting against the Team World group. I thought Team World, some of the guys were pretty good. Some of the guys weren't that great. I was very impressed with Lince Dorado and Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero's been there before, and I mean he's still a very good wrestler, and I think he showed what he could still do. He's definitely somebody that CMLL should really consider bringing back, because I think he could contribute something more to the promotion, especially the fact that he did such a great job building up his old rivalry, bringing that back with Volador Jr. I think that's something they should really consider. Maybe do a hair match or do some sort of title match between the two. I think that would be a fun match to have. And the other thing they could do with Rocky Romero is he could be the one that could lead Team World for the next couple of maybe the next year or so. Just have a team captain, a guy who like kind of picks out the team. I think that would be kind of a cool thing to have, and I think Rocky Romero would be a good fit for that. The other one I was very impressed with was Lince Dorado. I know he mentioned he wanted to appear on more CMLL shows, and he definitely deserves to be on there, and he was very impressive. I wasn't as high on him initially just because I don't watch a lot of WWE, if at all. And I didn't really know a lot of from him being in WWE. I knew very little about that other than him teaming up with Grand Metallic. And as an independent, I may have seen a few of his independent matches, but it's been so long ago that I honestly, he wasn't somebody that was really on my radar as far as being a super talented wrestler. And also the other thing was I really found his catchphrase very annoying. So that kind of killed it for me. Like I was like, I'm not going to be that excited about this guy. And he proved me wrong. He's a very good wrestler. I definitely think he's somebody that CMLL should bring back more often. if they really wanted to do something like have him and Rocky Romero be a, like a trio, bring in somebody else, and that would be fantastic. I thought those two were probably the most impressive out of everyone that was from Team World. I thought Messias also kind of fit in well, did a great job as the one who was the most recognizable foreigner in Mexico. So I think he did a great job of like healing it up, him and Rocky Romero for their team. The other guys that were on Team World, honestly, I thought Oraculo did pretty good, especially because he got that long stretch with Soberano Jr. That was kind of like the beginning of when they were going to start eliminating guys out of the match, and I thought he did pretty well. He has kind of like a cool, like an interesting look. So, if they wanted to bring him back as like teaming up with Lince Dorado and Rocky Romero, I'd kind of be okay with it. But I think the other thing is like I don't think he's quite at that level of those two, and I think that was the other thing. Messias, as far as star level and a known quantity in Mexico, he fit in as a guy that should be on this. And I think Rocky Romero and Lince Dorado on talent alone were way better than anybody else on Team World. I thought Robbie Eagles was going to be a little bit better, because I've seen him wrestle in other places. I've seen him in New Japan, and I think he was on one of the PWG shows I last attended, and he looked good. But I don't know, maybe that time off and the fact that he was dealing with everything that I was dealing with, having tested positive for COVID and then not being able to wrestle for a few days, and then having to get tested, maybe that kind of got his rhythm, got him out of rhythm or whatever. But I didn't really think he was that impressive. Matt Taven I thought was kind of just okay. Kenny King wasn't very good at all. Tiger Mask 4, I thought just name value kind of just was there. He really I will say the one thing I was very impressed with was the commentary team made sure to mention that he was the fourth version of Tiger Mask. So one of them was very specific on talking about how there was a Tiger Mask, mentioned Sayama being the first, Misawa being the second, Kanemoto being the third, and this one being the fourth version. So I thought they did a great job of making sure that people knew that this was not the original, because we still have a lot of people who, oddly enough, still think that it's the same Tiger Mask, when it'd be kind of ridiculous to think that it would be. I mean, I guess maybe not. In Mexico, it probably wouldn't be that ridiculous because there's a lot of older wrestlers still active in Mexico, especially in their late 60s, early 70s. So it wouldn't have been that surprising. But I thought it was best that maybe they could have brought in a Japanese wrestler that had a little bit more. And I think he fit just because they viewed him as a legend. That was kind of something like they kind of had to even it up a little bit, because I think if you don't have Tiger Mask 4 in the group, for the most part, and Messias, I mean, the other guys, I don't think they have the name value that would have attracted a lot of people. I think Rocky Romero, based off his interviews and bringing it back, all the stuff that from the past, I think he's kind of elevated himself. I think Lince Dorado on his work elevated himself. Kenny King, like I said, he wasn't very impressive. Robbie Eagles, I think he was a good addition, but I think maybe this match he didn't show as much. And I'm not gonna just nitpick the Team World. Team Mexico had a couple of guys that I wasn't really that pleased about. Stuka Jr. did not look good. Period. He did not look good in this match at all. He does look like he's gained a lot of weight since his early days. I thought Team Mexico side had to carry it a little bit more though. But I think really he was kind of like the one that was the most noticeably out of shape one. But everybody else, the other guys involved kind of seemed like they fit in. I think the one thing I was kind of disappointed is that they went with the obvious final three for Mexico being Ultimo Guerrero, Mystico, and Volador Jr. That seemed like a little too obvious. It would have been nice to have thrown in maybe like a Soberano Jr. or an Atlantis Jr. instead of like Ultimo Guerrero or Mystico. But obviously, if they wanted to get a stronger crowd reaction, so they kind of wanted to keep that reaction going, they obviously had to keep one of these three guys in there. Although, if you would have kept Soberano Jr. in, I think that the reaction would have been just as strong. But overall, I thought this match was a good match, bordering on great. I would say it was somewhere in between. The reaction to these matches where they have Mexico versus the world is always going to be very strong, and I really dug that. I thought it was two fun matches. I do recommend people watching them. very enjoyable. Just be warned, you'll probably have to, like, it's about an hour 50 minutes out of your time. So about a 2 hours that you could watch it, or you could watch it on the YouTube channel, CML's YouTube channel, where it's probably going to be cut down because the version I saw was on Ticketmaster Live, and it was a far longer lengthy. It had more length. It didn't have the editing that I'm sure the what they aired on television would have. So CMLL recently announced the entire lineup for the 89th anniversary show, which is going to happen on September 16th in Arena, Mexico. I guess we'll run down through the card and like get to what's changed in some of these matches. The opener for this show will be the Dulce Atrapasueños, Dulce Gardenia, Espíritu Negro, and Rey Cometa, defending the Mexican national trios titles against Fuerza Poblana, which is Arcalis, Guerrero Maya Jr., and Stigma. That was a very surprising match to announce. I'm really impressed that the Puebla trio got on this. Really happy for Guerrero Maya Jr. because he, anytime he gets an opportunity, he's a really good guy, and he, certain guys in CML, I'm really happy to see that they're doing well, like Rey Cometa, Dragon Rojo Jr., Templario, Guerrero Maya Jr. Certain guys in the promotion, just good guys. Hechicero, certain guys are just good guys that you kind of are rooting for, and this was actually a cool thing for them to be on this. This should be I actually think this should be a really fun trios match. Guerrero Maya Jr. should be able to carry his side of things, and I think Stigma and Arcalis, they are capable of having good matches or good performances, and I think with these Dulce Atrapasueños have pretty much become a very regular act in CMLL, so they've kind of figured out what they do in their matches, and for the most part they've been pretty good. This should be a fun way to open the show. The second match is Nero Casas, Star Jr., and Titan versus Los Infernales, Euforia, Hechicero, and Mephisto. Again, I think this is going to be a fun match, especially if Nero Casas, and I'm pretty sure he will because he's done this in the past in matches, he'll kind of step aside and let the younger guys have their time to shine. I would not be shocked if the Los Infernales win this match, just because I think that's kind of a way to set up what's going to happen for the Night of Champions show. It would make sense for them to win, but being CMLL, you never know. But this should be a fun match. I mean, Titan, another guy that I like to root for just because he's a really good guy. Should be a fun match. You get Titan Star Jr. getting to work with Euforia and Hechicero, so that's definitely going to be fun. Then we get the third match, which is the Copa Independencia final. This past Friday, Mystico advanced to the final. I would assume that the winner for Block B is going to end up being Volador Jr. We're probably going to get Mystico versus Volador Jr. I would be shocked if it was anything other than that. That seems like the obvious thing because those are the two big names that we're missing off of this year's anniversary. I think that should be a fun match if it is that. If it's not Mystico versus Volador Jr., maybe it's Mystico versus, who knows? I mean, if it's, I don't remember who was in his block. I can't remember. I think Carbonario's in this other. He might be he might not have been in Mystico's block. If he wasn't in Mystico's block, I could see him kind of being the guy who beats Volador Jr. to go face Mystico in the 89th anniversary show for the Copa Independencia final. I think either one of them, it's Carbonario or Volador Jr. or I think that would be fine. I'm sure there's other. I think Gran Guerrero and Angel de Oro might be in this second block because Niebla Roja was in the first block. So I mean, we'll have to wait and see who kind of fits more for Mystico. But I would imagine it's probably going to be Mystico versus Volador Jr. The fourth match on the show is La Jarochita versus Reina Isis in a mask match. I think this should be a good match. I wouldn't be. I mean, Jarochita is probably CML's best CML female wrestler, and I probably shouldn't have said probably. I should probably say is, because she's been by far the one that performs the best on a fairly regular basis, and she might actually be one of the better all around. Like if you're gonna pick best overall, she's definitely high up there among female wrestlers in Mexico. I think Reina Isis is capable of maybe having a good match, but I think it's going to be more so Haruchita carrying the load for this, because Reina Isis can be very inconsistent in what she's doing in the ring, and I kind of get the feeling Reina Isis is probably going to be the one that loses this match. For whatever reason, I just kind of think she's going to be the one that loses. Wouldn't be shocked either way, honestly, because I think Haruchita could also drop it, but especially the fact that she's kind of been changing her body a little bit now that she's been teaming up with Yuvia. She's kind of gotten a little more serious about her physique and whatnot. So it's a to me it could be go either way, but right now I'm kind of leaning towards Reina Isis losing the mask match, just because she kind of seems like somebody that's kind of ready to move on and do that more than anybody else on CML's female roster. Then we get the fifth match. It's not the fifth match, but the fifth. Well, I guess it is the fifth match. It is the Relevo Suicidas tournament, with the winning team going into a mask or hair match final. The teams are Atlantis and Fuerza Guerrera, Averno and Ultimo Guerrero, Atlantis Jr. and Stuka Jr., and the last team had to be changed because it was initially Sobrano Jr. and Templario. Templario got hurt recently, suffered a shoulder injury that required surgery, and he's expected to be out 5 to 6 weeks, maybe possibly longer. But that's more or less the time frame he was given and was mentioned by CMLL. And so as soon as that was announced, Templario being out of the anniversary show, Soberano Jr. posted a video talking about how he did not want to get removed from the tournament because he had already signed a contract, and he was hoping CMLL would find somebody else to replace him. The injury happened on a Friday. Soberano Jr. posted that video on a Saturday, and then on Sunday, Dragon Rojo Jr. posted that he would like to replace Templario and he gave out his reasoning being that he had beaten Sobrano Jr. for the CML World Middleweight title earlier in the year, and he had just recently beaten Robbie Eagles in a title defense. So it made sense. Like, if there was anybody that was going to replace Templario, it kind of seemed like Dragon Rojo Jr. was the ideal fit. You kind of wish Templario was on it, but I think Dragon Rojo Jr. was a suitable replacement. It also kind of sends a bit of a potential monkey wrench. I thought initially could have been a potential monkey wrench, but having watched the Grand Prix, I definitely think they got to go with Stuka Jr. If they're going to have somebody drop his mask, I'm guessing Stuka Jr. is probably the most likely one to lose it to Atlantis Jr., which would be a huge first win for Atlantis Jr., especially if you're trying to build him up as the next big star of the promotion, and to carry the tradition of his father Atlantis. That makes more sense. Like, if you asked me what I would pick to be the one that should be the big mask match on that show, I would go with Atlantis Senior versus Fuerza Guerrera, just because if you could get Fuerza Guerrera to drop his mask before he retires, do it now, and I think it would be perfect. That's probably the match that everybody that's going to order this or is like more of a old school fan would want. It's probably not the match that anybody wants to watch as far as aesthetically being a good match, but it's what I think would probably work as far as giving CML a little more time to build up some of the other guys and get a huge mask win for one last big mask victory for Atlantis. Because I think it would be so cool, like, if Atlantis ended up winning and he would have Fuerza Guerrera's mask added to not only Sombra, Ultimo Guerrero, Villano Tercero, Talisman, Mano Negra, countless other masks, Kung Fu. He has so many big matches that he's won. I think it would be kind of a cool thing to have that as one of his last big mask matches. And also, right now that you could still kind of get it, because right now, I think because of COVID and everything, I think people would be a little bit more forgiving of what they could do. Plus, you could also shorten it if you're going to do you're doing this tag tournament. This tag tournament is probably going to last, if let's say it lasts 20, 25 minutes, or maybe even longer. If you want to add a little more time, then you could do the mask match and make it a little bit shorter, so these two guys don't like blow up in the match and ends up being really bad. But I think, to me, like, if you gave me what order I would go with as far as preference, I think Fuerza Guerrera would be at the top of the list. Now, would it happen? I don't think it's going to happen, just because I don't see Fuerza Guerrera dropping his mask at all. I think he's somebody that kind of realizes that, even after he supposedly is going to retire, which I don't think he's going to retire. I think he's going to probably maybe take some time off and then come back again, because these guys always get the wrestling bug, and there's always promoters constantly asking them to come back. He's going to want to do autograph signings and doing merch appearances, and all this other stuff that guys do to generate revenue, and having the mask kind of adds to that. So I kind of think he's probably going to say no. He probably already said no to losing his mask. It'd be cool, like if it was him. To me, that would be number one. Number two would be Stuka Jr., just because I think it's time, especially if his son is going to join CMLL soon. And I think that would be something I would think would be really cool, is if it was Atlantis Jr. versus Stuka Jr. You have Atlantis Jr. seconded by his father, Atlantis, and then you have Stuka Jr. being seconded by his son, Hijo de Stuka Jr. And then that could be like your introduction to Hijo de Stuka Jr., where he kind of like does the I'm gonna get you when I start wrestling, get revenge for my father. And I think that would be kind of cool for them to do. So I kind of think Stuka Jr. is my second. He's kind of my top choice as far as the guy that I think is most likely to lose, as far as CMLL goes. But for me, I would prefer it be Fuerza, but you never know. Third choice, unfortunately, actually third choice for me is Dragon Rojo Jr. Think about it. This guy has had 5 pretty big injuries in his career, and he's been able to come back from them, and he's been able to continue to be pushed by CMLL as somebody that's relevant in their promotion. There was a stretch where he was more of a mid card when he was teaming up with Pólvora and the when they were forming the Revolucionaros, first with Rey Escorpión and then with Bobby Zavala. But since he came back from the more recent injury, he's kind of been pushed a little bit higher. He beat Soberano Jr. for the middleweight, the CMLL middleweight title. He just beat Robbie Eagles. He's on a high note right now. This seems like the best time for him to drop his mask. The most value he's going to get right now. To me, like, if you could get Stuka Jr. to maybe, to me, it would make more sense to get Dragon Rojo Jr. to lose his mask ahead of Stuka Jr. or even Fuerza, just because you don't know about the injury. Just because of the injury history, that there's always that chance that this could be it. I think it would be kind of cool if he had that last big moment. But unfortunately, I don't think I think if you're going to go in order, it's going to be Stuka Jr. 1, then probably Averno, then Dragon Rojo Jr., and then maybe like Ultimo Girl or somebody like that, just because I don't see Soberano Jr. or Atlantis Jr. or Atlantis losing their mask. And honestly, I just don't see any of those 3 guys losing their mask. It'd be too soon for Soberano Jr. or Atlantis Jr. And, Atlantis Jr. is going to be somebody that's going to carry the mantle for Atlantis. So to me, it's got to be one of the other 5 guys. And obviously, I think Ultimo Girl, his hair has a little bit more value. To me, more like if you could get, like I said, if you could get Fuerza to drop his mask, you could get so many of these other guys to like have other big matches down the road. Like you could headline a Dos Leyendas with Averno versus Ultimo Girl in a hair match. And then you could do like next year, maybe you do Dragon Rojo Jr. versus Soberano Jr. or Stuka Jr. versus Atlantis Jr. And then you follow that up with whoever was remaining. And then you kind of like set up that to the next one. I mean, you could actually, it's very possible that you could have like the top match for at least the 2 events from next year, and then one more for the following anniversary. So you could actually get 4 big matches out of this show. But I think, like I said, I think it's more likely that I would, if I had to guess, I think Stuka Jr. is probably the more likely one. I think Averno would probably be second, and ahead of Dragon Rojo Jr., just because I think Dragon Rojo Jr. came in a little too late. And I also think a lot of people are going to be like, oh, he's not going to lose. He's just filling in for Templario. And then there's also some people who are probably like, it's not fair for him to lose it because, he was a replacement. But there has been a history where CML has had guys who replace other guys in a mask match and lose. They actually lose. The replacement actually loses the mask. So it's possible. Those are my top 3. But ideally, Fuerza, I kind of would want him to be that, just because you're not going to get another opportunity. And really, I mean, honestly, like if you look, having watched the Grand Prix, watching Dragon Rojo Jr.'s battle back through injuries, I think this is a big opportunity and a big moment for any of those guys, either Fuerza Guerrera, Stuka Jr., or Dragon Rojo Jr. I think all of those guys could get it. I think Averno versus Ultimo Guerrero, that seems like more of a main event for another big show, like, you know, not the top tier, like probably not maybe for the early the late December shows, or maybe even like the October Dia de Muertos shows, or the even, I would even say Dos Leyendas, but I don't think it's an anniversary level main event. Yeah, so that's what I think. What do I think? I do think it's going to end up being Atlantis Jr. versus Stuka Jr. when all said and done. And I think Stuka Jr. is going to lose his mask. But it should be it looks like a very solid card, top to bottom. Should be fun. I'm looking forward to this anniversary show. There's some other shows that I'm not really that into, that they've been posting, but it's like that one I am looking forward to. One of those shows that I'm really kind of confused with. CMLL announced the Noche de Campeones, Night of Champions show would be happening on September 30th. And they actually announced that there would be 6 title defenses. They announced the champions that would be defending the titles, and they announced the three challengers for every title that you could vote on right now. You could vote on that if you go to CMLL.com. The first one that was announced was Mercurio defending the CML World Minis title, and he would go against either Piero Tito, Ultimo Dragoncito, or Minos. The second match announced was Lluvia and La Jarochita defending the Mexican National Women's Tag Team titles against either Amapola and Dark Silhouetta, or Princesa Suhei and Marcela, or Reina Isis and La Metallica. The third match was Los Malditos, Sagrado, and Los Gemelos Diablos 1 and 2, defending the CMLL World Trios titles against either Los Infernales, who are Hechicero, Euforia, and Mephisto, Guanato's team, Fugaz, Esfinge, and Star Black, or La Ola Negra, Akuma, Espanto Jr., and Dark Magic. And the next match that was announced was Chavez Brothers, Angel de Oro, and Niebla Roja defending the CML World Tag Team titles against either Ultimo Guerrero and Gran Guerrero, Dulce Gardenia and Espiritu Negro, or Volador Jr. and Magia Blanca. Titan will defend the CML World Welterweight title against either Negro Casas, Rey Cometa, or Suicida. And then the final match that was announced was Mystico would defend the NWA World Historic Middleweight title against either Soberano Jr., Guerrero Maya Jr., or Rugido. Early on right now, I think right now, pretty much a lot of these are not that big of a surprise. Leading in the minis has been Piero Tito, which I think Piero Tito versus Mercurio would probably be a pretty good match. I don't think it's happened. So it'd be something that's a little bit different. But I don't think a lot of people are really that excited about the minis or the women's match, and there's a couple of other matches that maybe aren't that strong, but Mercurio versus Piero Tito seems like the more logical one that would be more likely to be a good match that we haven't seen. The women's tag match right now leading are Amapola and Dark Silhouetta. That would actually be a pretty good match with Lluvia and Jarochita. That seems to be the one that would be the more likely best outcome, best match possibilities. Princesa Suhei and Marcela. Marcela isn't the same Marcela she was 5-6 years ago. And Reina Isis and La Metallica. No. Metallica. La Metallica has been in a lot of big matches in the past and has been very underwhelming in them. Not totally all her fault, but for the most part, she hasn't been very good. And I think she has to find a way to redeem herself. And I don't think this is the match that would be worth throwing her out there to redeem herself. Just because I don't think she could. This just isn't that. There's the other two teams are better. Los Malditos, the team that's getting the most, and this is probably the one that's getting the most votes as far as runaway from the difference between what first and second place has been. Los Infernales are just blowing away the competition. Keep in mind, with all of this that they're talking about, with the voting and all everything, if somebody tests positive for COVID, this change, or somebody gets hurt, this changes everything in some of these matches, and that's possible. Guanato's team, I just don't think they haven't been that impressive to me. And that's the other thing. Like, I think the Fuerza Poblana trio has actually kind of looked a little better than even Guanato's team. And Ola Negra, I mean, they're very popular with certain fans. They have a very strong fan base, mostly Akuma and Espanto Jr., but we don't need Dark Magic. And if you could pick 6 matches, and one of them consists of Dark Magic, please don't pick it. I mean, you don't need that. The tag match, surprisingly, Ultimo Girl and Gran Girl do not do well in these fan polls just because I think people just get tired and they already know CMLL is going to push them and they're always going to get an opportunity for a tag title match. I think they just had one with the Chavez brothers and I think over the summer or recently, earlier in the year at least. Dulce Gardenia and Espirito Negro surprisingly leading this right now. I'm surprised just because I thought Volador Jr. and Magia Blanca would be ahead. And I think that would probably be the better match. Actually, I think either one, especially with Dulce Gardenia. Those two teams really have one guy who stands out over his partner, with Dulce Gardenia looking way better than Espiritu Negro and Volador Jr. looking way better than Magia Blanca. But I kind of think Magia Blanca is a step ahead of Espiritu Negro in terms of quality. I hope Volador Jr. and Magia Blanca get a little bit more points because I would like, or more votes, because I think they would probably be a better matchup for the Chavez brothers. And with Titan, surprisingly, Suicida is actually taking the lead right now. Nero Casas is very, very much not in this, like very much out of it. It's really Reiko Meta and Suicida, and Suicida is very much ahead of Reiko Meta. I think this is interesting just because either one of those guys, Reiko Meta, I think the sentimental favorite is Reiko Meta just because this is one of those matches that I don't think anybody would ever see happen between Titan and Reiko Meta. One of those matches that I think fans would actually like love to watch. I think that would be something. But Suicida, I mean, what are the odds of him ever getting a shot at Titan too? So, especially right now that he's young, I think it'd be kind of interesting. I think either guy, maybe like a Suicida getting this opportunity would probably elevate him or push him. But it would be, I think this would be interesting. I kind of hope Reiko Meta kind of makes a comeback and is able to get in this match with Titan. But, you know, I'm okay with Suicida. I mean, I think the only issue that so far that this card has is that a lot of the people that are winning the voting, other than the Infernales, it doesn't seem like it's going to be something that's really going to draw the fans that attend, like the diehard fans that maybe don't care about the voting. They might not show up for this. It might have to depend on the fans who are actually voting showing up to attend these shows. And the final match, Mystico defending his NWA World Historic Middleweight title. I would prefer Soberano Jr. Guerrero Maya Jr., but surprisingly, Rugido is winning right now. Soberano Jr. is kind of close to Rugido, and I think it's Soberano Jr. posting or mentioning this on his social media would probably turn the corner for him to win this, which I think would be like a really good match. Soberano Jr. versus Mystico is, I don't think it's happened. But at the same time, I also think Guerrero Maya Jr. would also be another good opponent for Mystico. But, you know, if they could get Soberano Jr. and Mystico, I think that would make more sense just because that would be a really good match to headline the show or to draw in the bigger crowd. If it's Rugido versus Mystico, I don't really see that. I don't see a lot of people really attending CMLL's that show for that purpose. There's a chance the show will have a lot of weaker challengers for the champions, other than the Infernales versus Malditos. I could see that being the match that maybe becomes the main event. But again, that's also their issue that the voting. If there's a lot of voting for a certain match, it's gonna a lot of. It's gonna end up leading to that match ending up getting the main event spot or getting positioned higher. So that's all the CMLL for this week. I guess now we will talk about AAA. AAA's Triplemania 30th show happening in October. Chapter 3 in Mexico City. The only match that we had actually previously known prior to even really before they made the announcements at the press conference were the Villano 4 versus Pentagon Jr. Mask versus Mask match. The final of the Ruleta de la Muerte, which I think is going to be an excellent match. Villano 4. There is something about the Villanos, Villano 3, 4, and 5, where they've just been able to have really strong endings to their to set up their mask matches. I don't know what it is, but all of them were able to pull this off. Remember, Villano 5 had the upset win over Blue Panther and then dropped his mask to Ultimo Guerrero kind of as a payback for unmasking the legendary Lagunero Blue Panther. And Ultimo Guerrero got the revenge for the maestro of guy that all the Laguneros idolized in Blue Panther. Villano 3 got the Atlantis match, which was a huge match, one of the greatest matches of all time. And now Villano 4 gets this Triplemania big match with Pentagon Jr. I think this is really a big moment for both of them because Pentagon Jr. actually mentioned how he hasn't had that big match victory. And I think this is something that I could see being huge for both of them. So I think this is going to be something that's very exciting for a good way to end these Triplemania 30th anniversary shows. Definitely going to be strong. The other match that was announced that's a big match is Hijo de Vikingo defending the AAA World Mega Heavyweight title, but AAA made a comment that they were going to let the fans vote who they'd like to see him defend the title. It's kind of interesting that they still haven't really made the announcement of who. I guess you just got to mention it on your like reply to them and tell them, hey, I want to see so and so, because they really haven't made any mention. It'd be kind of like interesting if they did like a fan poll, kind of like what CMLL has done with their Night of Champions, just because it makes more sense to do that, because right now they only mention names. Obviously, the obvious ones being Kenny Omega, Phoenix, and Psycho Clown were the three obvious ones. They've really not really talked about it beyond that. I think they've done a few interview segments where they've talked about it, with when they've been interviewed by the media, but really nothing beyond that. I think the person that's probably made more lobbied more for that match has been Juventud Guerrera, who immediately there was a skit on the more recent AAA show where they kind of poked fun at Juventud Guerrera putting his name into the hat. I don't think he's going to get the opportunity for that. I think it really comes down to Kenny Omega, Phoenix, or Psycho Clown. And I think more likely, I don't know, it kind of feels like they're hoping it's Kenny Omega, but I could see it being one or the other, or who knows, they could even like announce a 4-way match. It's AAA. They'll do it. You never know what's going to happen. But it will be a strong match. I think it'll be good. It's got Hijo de Vikingo, so it's going to be good. So that's going to be a big match. The other match that was announced was Cibernetico versus Pagano in a hair match. That, I'm not that excited about, especially because Pagano doesn't even have a lot of hair. But that's probably going to be the match that's going to have a lot of interference, a lot of crazy spots between these two, a lot of sloppiness, especially a lot of sloppiness from both of them, because they're prone to having sloppy spots in their matches, and but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an event to watch that match. And then the other match that was actually announced was Taya defending the AAA Reina de Reinas title against Thunder Rosa. But I think that match has pretty much changed because Thunder Rosa is now out with an injury. So Taya had actually mentioned that she would defend the title against the winner of the mask match from the previous Triplemania, and that ended up being Lady Flammer. So maybe we get Flammer versus Taya. Who knows? That wouldn't be that bad. And she already has the big win that she had. That would be interesting. There was also an announcement that there would be a Copa Bardal and there would be a Marvel Lucha Libre match. Those should be interesting. I'm not that... I'm pretty sure the other thing that probably will happen is we'll definitely probably be seeing Jeff Jarrett on the show. He'll probably be in the Copa Bardal, or he'll be there to like help some foreigner win a match, or even be involved in winning a match. He'll be heavily involved with that. So that should be an interesting show. I'm actually looking forward to that. Looking forward to both the Triplemania 30th and the CMLL anniversary shows. They both look like they're going to be strong shows. And really, I know when people start talking about Wrestler of the Year, and they start talking about it by the midway point. But in Lucha Libre, it really comes down to who wins or what's the big anniversary or Triplemania match. And whatever was the bigger match and the bigger performance usually ends up being the wrestler that I tend to lean on as far as being Wrestler of the Year in Mexico. It could be somebody that's out of nowhere. Titan has been outstanding. Niebla Roja has been really good as well. There's been a lot of guys who have been very good. I'm trying to think. Hijo Vikingo has been pretty good. Phoenix is always in the mix. There's a lot of guys. Bandito has been outstanding as well. So there's always a bunch. But like I said, the anniversary and the Triplemania main events usually determine who gets doesn't determine, but really helps you see who might be the Wrestler of the Year in Mexico. The other news out of AAA was that Faby Apache finally announced that she was out of AAA. She is now an independent wrestler. Obviously, she's probably just going to be doing a lot of the independent shows, whatever you see with the Robles promotion in Mexico. A lot of the stuff in the US, like with RGR, she's been on those shows. There's been other promotions that have brought her in. I don't think she's going to go to CMLL right away, or I wouldn't be shocked if she doesn't go at all, just because I don't see that happening. I think everybody would hope that's something that everybody was like, man, maybe she'll go and we could finally get her versus, Marcella and Amapola and Princesa Suhei and all these other women. But I don't see it happening. I think she's going to stick being an independent. There's a lot of freedom with her being an independent. She could do a little bit more. And I wouldn't be shocked if she ends up again in AAA, just as an appearance type, because I don't think everybody ends up going back. Like we've seen Cibernetico, Psychosis, all these other guys who left, and even in even bad terms, and they end up coming back to AAA. So it wouldn't surprise me if she comes back anytime soon. Be interesting if she's able to do a little bit more. If CMLL could get her, it'd be awesome. Just because she'd be very just a different person in the promotion. She's automatically, even now, she'd be the best female wrestler in CMLL, because she hasn't aged as badly as some of the CMLL women have, like Amapola and Marcella. They've gotten a little, they're now showing their age, and Faby really hasn't. But like I said, I think she's going to stick to being an independent for the immediate future. So that's it for this week. Pretty much just wanted to run down and preview some of the upcoming shows, give out some of the latest news for the anniversary show and Triplemania, and obviously Night of Champions. Definitely, I do recommend you guys listening, check out the CML Grand Prix and also the Hechicero Euphoria title match. Those were great matches. And also I mentioned the Chavez brothers versus Star Jr. and Hero Mind Jr. That was a great match as well. There's been a few other matches that have been really good as well, some being great in CMLL. There's been some good stuff going on in AAA. As far as individual matches, the shows, honestly, there's some stuff that I like. It doesn't really, like, if you just want to watch Triplemania, pretty much don't have to watch the TV shows because they don't really lead too much. But there has been some good stuff on their TV as far as individual matches. There's been, there's Big Lucha World on Wednesdays on the Mas Lucha channel. Has been pretty entertaining. Big Lucha posts their shows as well every so often on Mas Lucha's channel as well. I think there's a big IWRG hair match coming up that looks pretty impressive. There's a lot of stuff going on, so check those out. For if you want to stay updated, check out LuchaWorld.com. If you're looking for old wrestling reviews, check out RetroWrestling.com. Check out the YouTube channel Retro Wrestling as well for more content, wrestling reviews. You'll find our podcast on there as well. Subscribe to it. Every subscription helps. And if you want more content, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/LuchaWorld. We have magazine write-ups. Did a podcast on El Santo where he picked out his top 5 matches of back in 1962. And then I went a little further and talked about the 20 years after and some of the big matches he had afterwards. That's something that I think at some point I'll probably even do like more. Obviously I'm always doing research on that, but at some point I'll probably like even add. I kind of want to do like a definitive top 10 matches for El Santo at some point, because really I was more focusing on the bigger ones that were his retirement match, and big singles matches that he had after 1962. But there's been some tag and trios matches that he had over his career that probably would fall into the list of those matches. So check that out. Also at the $5 reward tier, I have you could get the video vault, which are 10 DVD titles available through the Google Drive. You could download those, burn them onto on some disc, save them on a hard drive, do whatever you want. Hope everybody enjoyed the show this week, and we will be back again soon. I'm hoping after the anniversary show we'll have another podcast episode, and we'll talk to you guys in about maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe a little bit later. Who knows? But we will talk to you guys again soon. So long.